Hello everybody, I'm back in front of the camera again for another countdown style-ish video. As I mentioned yesterday, at the very end of NemeSeptember when we looked at Fans Hobby's archenemy, I'm going to be doing a video that is basically going through my top 5 Nemesis figures that I covered through all of last month. Because I felt like painting a huge target on my back, I guess, I don't know. The main reason I want to do top 5 is because, well, it's ultimately a little less involved than a top 10, and also I'm only allowed to do 5 cards per video, so this way I can have a card for every single one of the top 5. I will go over the runners-up in more or less numerical order, but I'm just going to go through them real quick, and then I'll actually explain my top 5 choices as I get to them. Sound good? Alright. So starting with the honorable mentions, this is basically starting from the bottom of the list and working our way up to the number 1 spot. So this last figure is, I guess you could say, the most disappointing out of all of them, but the thing worth considering is that doesn't necessarily mean that any of these figures are bad, just that this one in particular was a bit disappointing, and that is the Perfect Effect Dark Warrior. It's not a bad figure by any means. It's got some really great posability, the detailing's nice, and it is fun to mess with. Comes with some nice accessories. It's just little things like some weirdly limited articulation in a couple of places, and the fact that the arms are so easy to pop off during transformation. Those shoulder ratchets are so ridiculous. So that's why it is on the bottom of the list. For the rest of the runners-up, I can't say I'm really disappointed with any of them. It's just, this is where I put them in the hierarchy. So, above the Perfect Effect Dark Warrior, we have the Alumek Studio Series Nemesis Prime, which is a knockoff of the official Studio Series Optimus Prime, but in Nemesis colors. And the only reason that's as far down on the list as it is because it's a knockoff of Studio Series Prime, which in itself is a great figure, but there's a much better version higher up on this list. After that, we have the Universe San Diego Comic-Con Classics Nemesis Prime, which is a really cool figure. It's a really good Prime, but not my preferred color scheme, which would have the blood red windows and that kind of thing. Right above that, we have Armada Nemesis Prime, which is a very cool Prime, very nice design. I like how different it is, but it just didn't grab me as much as some of the other Nemesis Primes that are higher up on this list, such as Legendary Toys Dark Leader, the knockoff of Make Toys Striker Noir. The Striker Manus mold, which Striker Noir comes from, is a great mold on its own. It does have some issues in terms of aesthetics and truck mode and things like that, but it's very cool, very fun to pose. And this comes with a ton of accessories. It is a knockoff, so it does have slightly knockoff qualities. It definitely would have been better if I had managed to get Striker Noir, but Striker Noir goes for 3 times as much as I paid for Dark Leader, so yeah, I'm fine with the KO. Right above that, we have the official Make Toys Thunder Erebus, which is a great figure and a great set in its own right. It's just that there are certain little fiddly bits to it, and the vehicle mode, in particular the trailer, don't look super great. But it's incredibly posable, incredibly intimidating looking, very nicely chunky, and it's an all-around great set. Right above that, we have the one that'll probably annoy a lot of people, and that is 2001 Robots in Disguise Scourge. And I know, Scourge is the best Nemesis Prime ever, and it's just, I can't get past the lack of thigh swivels. I know it sounds incredibly petty, but considering how posable the rest of the figure is, it just seems like a weird misstep. I almost could have understood a lack of bicep swivels more than a lack of thigh swivels in this case. Which, again, not to say that it's not a good figure, it's a fantastic figure. I can totally understand why a lot of people think it's the best. It's just not my best. Funny enough, since we were just talking about Scourge, the last runner-up, the one that was just not quite able to hit the top 5, is Fans Hobby's archenemy, which is an updated Masterpiece-style version of RID Scourge. And it is an absolutely glorious figure. It's the most recent figure we looked at in the past month, and as I said, it sounded like I was down on it a lot in the video, but I did really, really like it. It's just certain weird limitations, like the hip rotation going forwards is weirdly limited despite having such amazing double-jointed knees, and the upper torso crunch is weirdly floppy in certain ways. It's a really, really amazing figure. It's just, it didn't blow me away like I was expecting it to. So with all of those out of the way, again, to reiterate, none of those are bad figures. Perfect Effect Dark Warrior was the most disappointing out of all of them, but even then I wouldn't call it a bad figure. It's just got some things about it that were kind of like, yeah, that's really a shame. But like all the rest of these figures, even Dark Warrior, they're all really good figures and well worth getting if you're interested in checking them out. It's just that these 5 I like even better. So coming in at number 5, we've got Universe Nemesis Prime, the big convoy repaint that is Nemesis Prime. Mostly because a combination of just how interesting this is for Nemesis Prime, the fact that he turns into a woolly mammoth, and also the fact that this mold never really captured my attention for Big Convoy or the reissue that they did that was more like cartoon accurate colors, but as a Nemesis Prime, it's one of the most gorgeous Nemesis Primes I've ever seen. It's so unique, so interesting, but still cool, and it does a lot of interesting things with the design. It still has the red kind of almost truck window chest, but it's not really truck windows, but it still kind of has that look to it. It's a really interesting color palette that still screams Nemesis Prime, even though it's not typical Nemesis Prime. And it's just such an interesting figure in its own right, and giving it the Nemesis treatment really goes a long way. At number 4, we have the reason why the Aoyi knockoff of Studio Series Optimus Prime in Nemesis colors did not make it higher up on the list, and that's because now we've got the Aoyi Dark Knight Nemesis Prime, which is the oversized knockoff version of Studio Series Optimus Prime, but re-engineered. A lot of interesting stuff going on here, some extra articulation, some new joints, new transformation, well, slightly new transformation scheme. And the results are pretty spectacular. This is a very, very cool Nemesis Prime. And it's definitely got some particulars when it comes to things like transformation. Like, you really got to be careful with these panels that wrap around the shoulders. It did require some kind of finesse with regards to the feet. And oh boy, was there a lot of nonsense I had to go through to get this. With a little bit of TLC, a little bit of extra work, it's just amazing. Like, for example, I did some floor polish treatment on the hinges for the doors, for the chest, so it's much harder to just like they still can get bumped out of place, but they're less floppy than they were, and I might give this one a little bit more treatment, but that's better. It's hard to see, but I painted the eyes red, did like kind of a red and then metallic red over that, because I wanted them to be visible when the eyes aren't lit up. But the added bonus is by doing that, when you light the eyes up now, it doesn't give you that cross-eyed look anymore. It actually diffuses the light better, so the eyes still light up, but it looks much more even now that the eyes are painted. So it's kind of got this double effect of making the eyes visible when they're not lit up, and making them look better when they are lit up. Yaoi LS13B Dark Knight is an absolutely spectacular Nemesis Prime. In the number 3 spot, we've got a Nemesis Prime that I didn't technically look at this past month because I had already looked at it previously, but it was still a part of the month via the transformation video, and that is Generation Toys Nemesis Colors OpX. And this is just a wonderful, wonderful little Nemesis Prime. The OpX mold is great on its own, but in Nemesis colors, it is so freaking pretty. I love this mold as it is. It's fun to transform, fun to mess with, fun to pose. There are certain limitations to it, certain kind of bits of fiddliness to it, like these forearm panels that like to pop out of place extremely easily. The toes can be a little bit, you gotta be a little bit careful with them, but you know, could tighten those up pretty easily. And I haven't had any real issues with mine. It hasn't really seemed necessary for me to do anything with the feet, but I have heard that they're a problem. Even with the nitpicking, I don't really have any real complaints about this guy. He looks amazing. His transformation actually makes sense both ways, and it's really effective, really clean. Everything holds together really well in both modes. I'm very, very glad that I went from the regular OpX to the Nemesis colors, because I love this so much. Oh, we are starting to get to the point where it's going to be pretty easy to figure out what the top 2 are from process of elimination, huh? Because it's going over all of the Nemesis Primes. In the number 2 spot, we have Perfect Effects Nemesis Guerrera. This guy is incredible. Keep in mind, I'm saying this guy is in like the number 2 spot, and I haven't even bothered to transform him into either of his vehicle modes. So there are 2 entire modes that this toy has that I have not actually physically transformed him into ever. It's only been Gorilla, Robot, that's it. And just based on those 2 modes alone, this guy is incredible. The detailing is fantastic, the colors are great, the proportions are great, the overall style and aesthetic that they went for in this guy is fantastic. The transformation actually makes a lot of sense and does some really clever stuff, like how the arms kind of shift down and recenter where the shoulders are in relation to everything else to give him like the longer ape arms. Very cool, very nicely detailed. It's just such a pretty toy. Weirdly, a lot easier to get your hands on than that red and blue special version that they released a while back, which is fine with me because personally I like this even better, but hey, if you're looking for this guy, you can still find him in a lot of online retailers. And at long last, we come to the #1 Nemesis Prime in my collection of the Nemesis Primes that I've had. There are plenty out there that I've not handled before, so if it's not on the list, that's why, because I never touched it. But #1, as you might have guessed, is the Magic Square Light of Freedom, I think. Nemesis Prime, their black version of Light of Freedom, which is it's basically Magic Square's version of an MP10 styled and scaled Optimus Prime, or in this case Nemesis Prime. And this figure is really, really good. I know a lot of people prefer the Transform Element, I think it is, Prime over this, and that's totally fine, but for me, it's Magic Square all the way. This one, it just hits all the right notes for me. I love how the grille isn't a fake grille, it's actually the front grille of the truck. It just rotates around. I love how clean the legs are. There's like virtually, well not virtually, there's literally no kibble on the legs. It all just tucks inside. It's an incredibly clean robot mode. I love the added option of the kind of bullet damage and cracked windshield that you get for the chest there. That looks great, and I think it works great for Nemesis Prime. Colors are fantastic. He's got those really nice blood red windows. You don't have to worry about a light up gimmick or dead-looking light piping eyes or anything like that. He's incredibly posable. Even if it's a little small, the Energon axe that he has also looks really good. It's just a great all-around Prime. And for as much as I like the Universe Nemesis Prime for having a much more unique design, I just kind of gravitate back to the more classic G1 design, but in Nemesis Prime colors. There's something about this that just appeals to me more than all of that other stuff. It's not to say any of the other Nemesis Primes on this list are bad, just this is my #1. And with that, NemeSeptember is officially done. I mean, it was done when we looked at Arch Enemy, but now it's done. This is putting the cap on it. Done with Nemesis Primes for now. I'm sure there will be more Nemesis Primes for me in the future. But for now, I think over a dozen Nemesis Primes is plenty. That's going to do it for all of these Nemesis Primes. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Hopefully you don't hate some of my decisions, but like I said, this is just where they stand on my list. I completely understand if some of you still think that RID 2001 Scourge is the best Nemesis Prime. Just for me, that still goes to the Magic Square version. But that's the great thing about all of this. There are so many options for people that it's so easy to find a favorite. Actually, sometimes it's really difficult to find a favorite because there are so many incredibly good ones. Putting this list together was incredibly difficult because it was kind of like, how do I choose what goes above what? And ultimately, I just had to kind of go with my gut. Thank you again, everybody, for watching. Let me know what you think down in the comments, whether you agree or disagree. If there are any Nemesis Primes that you think are even better that aren't on this list because I haven't actually handled them at all, then feel free to let me know about those too, because I know, like I said, there are a lot of Nemesis Primes that I have not touched. So thank you again, and again, it's probably like the 3rd or 4th time I've said thank you, but thank you for watching, and I will see you all next time.